It's Graham here, living the dream in May 2025, and welcome to the last episode in my Tennessee 25 series. In this episode, join me as I make the long journey back from Knoxville here in Tennessee to my home airport in Glasgow, Scotland. On this trip via Chicago and London Heathrow. It's going to be a long one, guys. I have no idea how it's going to go at this stage, but if you continue to watch this episode, you will follow me on my 19-20 hour journey home to Scotland. Hi, I'm Graham, and this is my wife Fiona, and we have always had a work hard, play hard philosophy. From London to New York, and of course the Caribbean, we live our dream through travel. And of course, the odd cocktail. And here on YouTube, we create our memories while living our dream. So come and join us as we share our memories with you. Saturday, the 24th of May, 2025 was day 7 of my Tennessee 25 adventure, and it was therefore time for the boys to leave, Tom and Stars, and head back to the airport, Brandon to Nashville, and myself to McGee Tyson in Knoxville. Brandon had picked up this one-way rental in Knoxville yesterday, because quite honestly guys, there is no public transport in this part of the world. Typical Tennessee and very southern USA.
Well, another successful. I think this was the best, most successful meeting we've done yet. You filmed my crappy interior of my garage? That what junk laying around?
With Tom doing his best Donald Trump impression as he reversed out of his garage in the Dodge Charger. Brandon hadn't moved yet. Clearly he was programming his sat-nav for the 2.5 hour journey across to Nashville Airport. I have to admit that the V8 does make a pretty awesome sound. A far cry from the EV that I drive back in Scotland, which makes very little sound at all. Anyway, back to today and my long road home to Scotland. We were now joining the I-40, and while our journey between Tom and Stars and Knoxville Airport would only take between 35 and 40 minutes, the Interstate 40, or is known as the I-40, runs between Barstow, California and Wilmington, North Carolina, which makes this interstate 2,557 miles long. So to put that into perspective here in the United Kingdom, it would be like driving from Land's End to John O'Groats, then driving all the way back to Land's End before driving north again to the English and Scottish border. And at this point in our very short commute along the I-40, we're coming up on the I-75 junction, which is a north-south highway connecting the Canadian border with Florida. And we're now approaching the US city of Knoxville in eastern Tennessee, the home of the University of Tennessee, and according to the US Census in 2020, home to just under 200,000 people. And here we are, approaching McGee Tyson Airport in Knoxville, Tennessee. Opened in August 1st, 1930, named for Charles McGee Tyson, an aviator and World War I hero, born in Knoxville, of course. In 2023, McGee Tyson Airport handled just over 2.5 million passengers, an 18% increase over the previous year, and that translated to just over 104,000 flights. I did hear a week earlier a number of passengers complaining that this relatively small airport had been well outgrown by the number of passengers it was handling each year. And as you can see here, the Airport Authority are building a new multi-storey car park. And it was 1 week earlier, last Saturday, when I arrived at this airport just after 6:45 in the evening to begin a week of business meetings, but also having some fun along the way. With Tom on his way home, it was time for me to get in to the airport, check in for my flight up to Chicago, and send my bag all the way through to Glasgow. American Airlines runs a fairly small operation here at Knoxville. The focus is, of course, connecting Knoxville with the main American hubs at the likes of Chicago, where I'm heading now, but also Charlotte and Dallas-Fort Worth. And the last time Fiona and I were here at Knoxville Airport was just over 3 years ago, when we caught a Delta service down to Atlanta before flying home to Glasgow via Amsterdam. And with American having such a small operation here at Knoxville, they're tucked away in this far corner of the little airport. There was only 2 check-in counters open at the American Airlines check-in desks. They were trying to encourage as many passengers as possible to use the automatic kiosks. Given that I wanted to send my bag all the way through to Glasgow, I wanted to play safe, and I stood in line for at least 15 to 20 minutes to check my bag in all the way through to Glasgow, before picking up 3 boarding passes, of course up to Chicago, then across to London, and finally up to Glasgow. The design of Magee Tyson Airport here in Knoxville is actually quite nice. The landside building is connected to the airside building via this bridge, and this is where you will meet the TSA agents. It's also where you'll see this water feature, which is also giving the airport a bit of a chlorine smell, which, to be honest guys, is quite pleasant for an airport. As you will understand, I turned the camera off as I approached TSA, and all I'm going to say is the girl that I engaged with at the baggage check scanner was a little robotic. In fact, I think she had her personality chip removed. But for me, the strangest thing was, every 5 or so minutes, the Airport Authority played an announcement reminding passengers not to carry their firearms through TSA, which to me is a Brit translated that if an American wants to go on holiday with their gun, they would have to check it in their luggage. Yes guys, to me, a very strange and an extremely sad reality to life in this part of the world. As you can see, the gate area was extremely busy, so I went and had some lunch before coming back to the gate to be called for my flight up to Chicago. Because my ticket across to London was a premium economy ticket, I was in boarding group 4 for this flight north to the Windy City. My American Airlines flight up to Chicago this afternoon was on board an Embraer ERJ-145 operated by PSA Airlines. It's exactly the same aircraft type that I flew down to Knoxville a week earlier from Philadelphia, but today I was in seat 6A. As we taxi to runway 05 right here at Knoxville, we're passing this American Airlines 737-800, which is on its way to Dallas-Fort Worth. I felt really sorry for the gate agents because they were having a lot of problems boarding that aircraft. There was another American Airlines flight going to Dallas a couple of hours later, but clearly there were a lot of passengers on that flight that were hard of hearing because they kept trying to board this earlier flight, and the gate agents had to make 3 or 4 announcements to ask the passengers on the later flight to sit down and stay away from the gate. Was it hearing problems, or was there something else? I'll leave you to decide. The scheduled flight time to Chicago this afternoon was 2 hours and 20 minutes. And just like on the way down from Philadelphia a week earlier, I was able to get a Coke Zero, and in this flight I got a Biscoff. The single flight attendant was lovely. She was very engaging, which in my experience certainly isn't the norm in this part of the world. But to my surprise, the 2 hours and 20-minute flight turned out to be only something like 1 hour and 15 minutes. And it wasn't long until we started our initial approach into the Chicago area. And here we are, overflying Chicago Midway Airport, the home of Southwest in this area.
Where the time is currently 3:37 p.m. As a reminder, please remain seated with your seatbelt fastened until the seatbelt sign is off. Keep the aisle clear of all items. Don't forget to check your seatback pocket and surrounding area to ensure you have all of your belongings like cell phones or tablets. When you open the overhead compartment, be careful as items may have shifted in flight. You may now use your cell phone.
And it was at this point, just after landing in Chicago, that I realised why our flight time was 2 hours and 20 minutes. Chicago O'Hare is an enormous airport, and as a result, a massive part of the 2 hour and 20 minute schedule of this flight was spent taxiing to the gate here at O'Hare. There was also a lot of construction here at O'Hare when I visited the airport on the 24th of May 2025. I have no idea what they're doing. Are they building more taxiways, aprons, or even a terminal? Maybe somebody can tell me in the comments below. Anyway, that is flight 1 of 3 complete. Only 2 more to go, but first we need to get to the terminal, and I need to transfer to my British Airways flight across to London Heathrow. As we deplaned the little Embraer 145 at Chicago, my first problem began. All of the apps that I'd downloaded for O'Hare that would hopefully tell me the gate that my British Airways flight was departing simply were showing nothing. And as I would soon find out, the signposting here at O'Hare was pretty terrible. Anyway, first challenge was to get off the jetway. To be completely honest with you guys, I was sort of walking aimlessly. I had absolutely no idea where I was going, and I really needed to find an information desk. After about 20 minutes of wandering around this pretty enormous airport, I did find an information desk, and the very nice lady told me that the BA flights typically went from gate K19. So that is where I'm heading right now. And as I approached K19, I could see that the earlier British Airways flight to London Heathrow was boarding. And these lucky passengers on the earlier BA flight to London would be crossing the Atlantic in a Boeing 787-10 Dreamliner, a type of aircraft I've never flown on before. I have flown on the 787-8 of TUI and then the British Airways 787-9. Of course, last Saturday in fact, I'd flown on the 787-9 of American Airlines, and that was a very nice transatlantic service from London across to Philadelphia. And just over 30 minutes after the BA Dreamliner headed out to London Heathrow, our slightly older, probably much older, 777-200 arrived from London, ready to take us back across the Atlantic later this evening. The boarding process started promptly, and being in premium economy, I was in boarding group 3.
Groups 1, 2 and 3 are welcome to board.
I think the carpet on this jetway was brand new because it smelled like brand new carpet. The gate agent lady was also super friendly, so it wasn't long until I was boarding this 7-hour flight across the Atlantic to London Heathrow. And as I made my way through the Club World cabin towards the cheap seats, I had absolutely no regret tonight that I didn't even try to upgrade to business class. After all, it was only a 7-hour flight and not worth it. And while I'd struck lucky with a bulkhead front row in the Premium Economy or World Traveller Plus cabin, I was going to be plagued trying to video through this pretty dirty window. But soon the hot towel arrived, something that American Airlines didn't offer on the flight over to the US a week earlier. And yes, a pre-departure beverage in the form of a glass of orange juice followed. Again, something else that American Airlines don't offer in their premium economy service, transatlantic. However, this window clearly was going to cause me a problem videoing on the flight this evening. I'm sorry folks, but there was nothing I could do about it. So there you go guys, flight 2 of 3 was now airborne and we were just over 7 hours away from London Heathrow. And it didn't seem that long after departure when the drink service started. For me that meant a Heineken. And you will notice that I didn't just luck out with this bulkhead seat at the front of the premium economy cabin, but the aisle seat was empty, so I had no seatmate on tonight's overnight flight across the Atlantic. And with the usual choice of beef or chicken, I chose the vegetarian pasta dish, and I sort of regret it guys, it was completely tasteless. It wasn't very good at all. And without a doubt, I'm glad that I ate at Chicago O'Hare before I boarded this aircraft to London. I did eat the chocolate cake and drink the beer, but of course guys, I avoided the salad. But what I will say that separates British Airways from American Airlines is without a doubt the cabin crew. The BA cabin crew are just a step above and were very engaging. Breakfast came in the form of an egg and cheese bagel. It might look okay guys, but I have to admit it was pretty awful. Again, very bland and extremely tasteless. However, the coffee and the orange juice were very good and obviously very welcome. And honestly, it's the food on board British Airways that lets our national carrier here in the UK down. It's without a doubt the staff that make British Airways the airline that it is today. They are very good, but it's not their fault that the food on board this airline is so bad. And before you ask, you're unable to pre-order food on board British Airways. You used to be able to do this, but it stopped during the pandemic and never returned. Probably another British Airways cost-cutting exercise. Well, that's my opinion. Anyway, you can see we're making our initial approach into London Heathrow. So I'm going to shut up and try to let you enjoy the landing through this pretty rough window overlooking the wing. I know guys, this seat probably wasn't the best choice for YouTube content creation.
any assistance here at Heathrow, please speak to one of our colleagues who'd be happy to help. And for those customers who have ordered assistance to leave the aircraft today, please remain seated until the aisle around you is clear, and our crew will be on hand to assist you. On behalf of all of us on board and British Airways, I would like to thank you for choosing to fly with us today, and we look forward to seeing you all again very soon. Thank you and a very good morning.
Welcome to London Heathrow Airport Terminal 5. That's flight 2 of 3 complete. I just need to transfer from my last flight up to Glasgow in just over 3 hours time. So the big question was my British Airways flight back from the US as good as my American service out to the US? Absolutely not, guys. The food on board this flight just let British Airways down. And it's such a shame because BA is my national airline and the staff on board the service from Chicago over to London were just so incredibly good. We landed at the B gates at London Heathrow's Terminal 5, and that meant that I would need to take the little underground train to the main terminal here at Heathrow T5. So after 7 hours stuck in a tin can at 35,000 feet crossing the Atlantic, I certainly was going to get my step count up this morning. No big surprise where my first stop was going to be before getting the little train over to the main terminal at T5. And you see what I mean, guys, I wasn't lying when I said my step count was going to get up today. And once the train arrives, the next stop will be T5 main terminal.
Transit approaching. Please stand clear of the doors. Please hold on. Transit is departing. Next stop, arrivals, baggage reclaim and flight connections all terminals. This is arrivals, baggage reclaim and flight connections all terminals. Please take all belongings with you.
I have to admit, guys, that I don't ever remember the T5 arrivals ever being this quiet, but it was just after 9 AM on a Sunday morning on a bank holiday weekend in late May. I'm now approaching the flight transfer area here in T5 for domestic flights to the UK only. And as a result, I'll be turning the camera off again to get through passport control. And with my passport checked by a very nice UK border control lady, I was now on my way to the baggage security scanning area. And because the Airport Authority at London Heathrow had upgraded all of their baggage security scanners to the latest equipment, there was absolutely no need to empty my bags of laptops, iPads, liquids, etc. And that meant it was a really simple, easy and fast process to get through security. My plan now was to go and find a seat and relax for a couple of hours before my flight was called up to Glasgow. London Heathrow has a very good and reliable app for your phone. You can tell the app days in advance of your departure, and on the day you will constantly be kept up to date with notifications, including when your gate is allocated 60 minutes before your flight, and that's exactly what happened to me. So I'm now heading to gate 15, and being a bronze member of the BA Club, which used to be known as the Executive Club, I'd be boarding in Group 3. Boarding did seem painfully slow this afternoon, or maybe it was just me, because at this point in the long road home I was extremely tired. We were taxiing towards runway 09 left here at the London Heathrow Airport on a fairly new Airbus A320neo, which also had been fitted out with British Airways' brand new interior, including seats. However, to protect the other passengers, I didn't catch any footage of this new seating at all. It was very nice and pretty comfortable for what is a short 1 hour flight up to Glasgow. And with the Qantas Airbus A380 Super Jumbo on its way to Australia, I guess it was now our turn to enter runway 09 left for departure for a very short flight up to Glasgow. To be completely honest with you guys, I fell asleep shortly after departure. I therefore completely missed the in-flight service, but I wasn't missing much as all you got was a bottle of water and some pretzels. But as you can see, we're descending into the clouds now on our initial descent into Glasgow. When I'd left the UK just over a week earlier, we were 7 weeks or more into a heat wave, which was very unusual in this part of the world. So sometime during the week that I was away, the heat wave broke, and as you can see, normal service resumes over central Scotland.
And a very warm welcome to Glasgow. The time here, 20 minutes past 1 in the afternoon. I'd like to remind you at this stage to please remain seated and with your seatbelt securely fastened until the captain switches on the sign. And when it's safe to do so, please again take care when you open the overhead lockers, as items do tend to move and could potentially fall out and cause an injury. You may now make and receive calls as well as use all data services on your handheld electronic devices. Also, before leaving the aircraft today, please do check that you have all of your personal belongings with you, including anything that you may have placed in your seat area or seat back pocket during the flight. Now, if you need any further assistance here, our ground colleagues that will be meeting the flight will be more than happy to be of assistance to you. And if you have pre-requested assistance to leave the aircraft today, we do ask that you please remain seated until the aisle around you is clear. And that way a member of the cabin crew can be on hand to better assist you. So finally, on behalf of all the crew on board the aircraft and British Airways, we'd like to thank you for choosing to fly with us today. It's really been our pleasure to be of service to you. So we do hope that whenever your future plans call for air travel, you will once again consider using our services here at British Airways. So thank you, and please enjoy the rest of your weekend.
And as you can see, when it comes to weather here in central Scotland, normal service certainly has returned. And as I leave the plane here at Glasgow Airport, by the time I made it home this afternoon, I'd be going for just over 23 hours. That's 23 hours door to door, Tom and Star's house to home. Without a doubt, it is a long road home. And in retrospect, this particular journey went very smoothly. Well, as long as my bag arrives here in Glasgow. And while British Airways and American Airlines certainly aren't 5-star airlines, they got me home in one piece and on time, so I'd really nothing to complain about. So all I had to do now was head down the escalator, which would take me past the Tennent's Lager advertisement, probably advertising for one of the worst beers in the world, in my opinion anyway. I would then hopefully collect my bag, which I hadn't seen since I checked it in at Knoxville yesterday lunchtime, and then head outside for my Princess parking. Of course, I had been tracking my case using an Apple AirTag. I knew that it had followed me from Knoxville up to Chicago, and then Chicago across to London. The AirTag had gone offline for just over an hour, probably somewhere in the conveyor belt system under London Heathrow's Terminal 5. But it did reappear again as I boarded the aircraft. The app on my phone clearly showing me that the bag was on board the aircraft up to Glasgow. So that was a good omen that everything was on schedule. Not sure why, guys, I was surprised when my bag arrived on the conveyor belt here in Glasgow's main terminal. In fairness to British Airways, it does more often than not. So no matter what your opinion is of the national airline here in the United Kingdom, I find them pretty reliable at least 80% of the time. Okay, as I head outside towards the main car park and therefore the pickup point, I know you're asking, guys, what I meant by Princess parking. I follow a YouTuber called Ernie, who is a captain on board Southwest Airlines based out of Phoenix, Arizona. When Ernie gets his wife to pick him up from the airport after a shift, rather than parking in the staff car park, he calls it Princess Park. And that's exactly what's happening here today, because I called Fiona just after receiving my bag and she was on her way here to collect me at the pickup zone D in Glasgow Airport. And as a result, this is where I'm going to bring this episode to a close, including the entire Tennessee 25 series. The next series to follow this one will be Tenerife 25. Yep, Fiona and I are heading on our holidays in early July down to the Canary Island of Tenerife. So you know what to do, guys, if you want to continue to follow the channel. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and press the bell icon to be notified when I publish my next video. I hope you enjoyed Tennessee 25. Thank you very much for watching.